Good morning, good morning. Good morning and welcome back to the Monster Energy Invitational presented by Logitech here at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. Thank you for joining us. We're now on day 2. Some top 4 North American teams are battling it out for $15,000 in prize pool. The third place team will walk home with $2,000, the second place with $3,000, and the top team will take home $10,000. I'm Anna Prosser-Robinson. I'm thrilled to be your host for this event, and I'm joined by 2 very amazing casters, Fogged and AC. How are you guys doing?
Doing just fine live here at the Casters Desk, ready to get day number 2 of the Monster Invitational here at South by Southwest underway. And, we saw some good play yesterday, but I really think us, as well as most of the audience, are looking forward to today. This is really where things get thick. You have 2 teams facing off in an elimination match. One of these 2 teams ahead of us right now, going home with nothing. They'll be leaving with nothing in their pocket, and certainly with a 4th place finish that I doubt that they really want for obvious reasons. But, Team Liquid had been up and down coming into this. eHug, again, the new guys on the block, the team that really has a lot to prove, and this is their first time as 5 here on land today. Yeah. What do you think is going to be key for both of these squads, just in a couple of sentences?
Well, Liquid yesterday showed some great resilience. They came back after a devastating first loss. Second game, they were not doing so hot in the beginning, then somehow they pulled a great victory out of them. So Liquid just needs to really stick to what they were doing yesterday, just have the resilience, have that fortitude, be ready to, in case anything goes wrong. I mean, we know eHug's a bit, known as the less strong team, so eHug's really going to have to make up for the fact that they didn't play that great yesterday. They really need to just put everything together and play like the team that we've seen them play online. So, they don't have much LAN experience, but they definitely can play good. We've seen them play very well online, so I'm hoping to see some big plays out of eHug today.
And coming up with our second match of the day, obviously, EG taking on Cloud9. I think that's the matchup that coming into the entire tournament, we knew we'd see one way or the other, no matter where it happened, be it finals, be it winter bracket finals, just based on pure chalk. Yeah. Looking ahead to that match, that's going to be, I think, a marquee match, and possibly we could see that rematched in the finals regardless. But ahead of us again right now, we've got eHug taking on Team Liquid, and we're going to see what the captains have to say about that. Back to the stage with Anna.
Hi there, guys. I'm joined by Team Liquid's TC and eHug's Jigobilly. We're going to get a little bit of insight before we get this match started. TC, how has Austin been for your team so far?
It's been pretty good so far. We haven't had much time to go around looking at things. It would have been nice to be here during the music part of the festival as well, but it's been pretty great so far.
You guys are getting your Dota work done, not too much play, huh?
Yeah.
And what about you guys? What's the energy like here at South by Southwest and at this event?
So far it's been really fun, exciting. So far I've stuck pretty much to the Dota scene, but I might look around later.
Great. Now, TC, yesterday, you guys put up a pretty convincing fight against Cloud9, winning game 2. What have you done, in the evening afterwards and this morning to kind of get yourselves back in the game and be ready to take on this lower bracket?
Well, we basically just looked at the mistakes we made, and especially in the third game, because we got off to a pretty good start, but then we kind of just fell apart. But we're looking to not repeat those same mistakes today.
Sounds good to me. And also yesterday, you guys, you ended up here in this lower bracket in a fight against EG. What did you guys do to kind of synthesize what happened in that game and move forward for a strong performance against Team Liquid?
Well, basically what we took from that game is we learned that tri-lanes, if you're going to risk running your carry up top or in the off lane, you're going to really need to get farm, and if it doesn't work out, it's really not good. We also might see a surprise from eHug versus Liquid.
Oh, a surprise.
Yeah, it might come up in the series sometime.
All right. Well, that's actually one of the things I was going to ask is, of course, you can't give everything away. But if someone is watching and maybe they're not familiar with their team, or maybe they're just getting into Dota, or maybe they're a rabid fan and they're looking to see something new, what should your audience be looking for in this game that you think is really going to shine through in this series?
I'm not really sure. I think we're just going to play our own game. Hopefully, we can deal with whatever eHug throws at us.
All right, and you did mention you have a surprise, but what kind of play style, if someone's not familiar with eHug, should they be looking for from you?
Basically, I think we're going to try and farm. Lately, we've been trying to push early, and we just need to stick together and not gank so much, which is what we did versus EG. We kind of have to play our own game, too.
All right, well, we'll see your own game, and we'll see which comes out on top. So go ahead and shake hands. Good luck to everyone. Back to you, casters. Take us away.
Well, again, listening to them on stage, I mean, you and I have had a lot of time to talk to these players. And, as casters, we're not going to reveal anything in case headsets are off. But we do know there are some back pocket strategies a lot of these teams
absolutely.
have. And really looking forward to seeing potentially what Jiggle and company might be bringing to bear with that. But again, talking about Team Liquid, you and I actually had a lot of time to discuss things with Bulba this morning. And, he was able to identify a number of moments where it was just mostly mental mistakes, being caught out of position, not making the correct response to a big play, etc., that cost them yesterday. Looking ahead to this match, Bulba and Team Liquid know that was really where they hurt, and that was an excellent series that we saw to close the day yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just coming up a little bit short. They will be coming in the favorites again here today, though. But based on our conversation with Bulba, do you think there's going to be any changes to what Liquid has been doing lately, or do you think they're just going to continue to stick to what they know the best?
I think they're just going to continue sticking to what they know the best. I mean, they tend to play very well team-oriented as long as they just know their game plan.
Right.
Like yesterday, it seemed like that last game, they had a game plan, and then it just got skewed, and then they decided, you know what, instead of us just playing this ganking game with our ganking heroes, we're going to team fight this Doom and all these other heroes, and it really showed they got punished heavily for it. So.
Right. Yeah, looking ahead, the draft just now getting underway. Still not too many bans or picks out for the moment. But, also just talking to Bulba this morning, he's, I won't say frustrated, but the changes in the meta of late have really hurt the style that he likes to play, and the Team Liquid tends to draft around it. Again, we talked about it yesterday. They have been up and down in terms of just able to execute. I mean, Team Liquid, especially those core three in Fluff, Bulba, and TC, whenever you watch them last year, for example, before the team was remade, and obviously missing Koikfa hurts them a whole hell of a lot, but they were very much a pick-a-thin lineup but carve the map up kind of a team. And it seems like they've really been struggling to execute over the last two patches, looking over just the last few months. And, just as we wait for these bans and these picks to get going, from a professional player's point of view, where do you think that change has come from? Why do you think that strategy is much more difficult to execute now?
Well, I think just a lot of teams are just picking up on the way the game is changing. The way this patch is hitting through, everyone's starting to realize which heroes are extremely powerful, how you can abuse lanes. If you see how the way people pick, if they pick greedy, you can really take advantage of it. Either you can go extremely greedy or you can punish their greed. Like we saw yesterday when C9 decided, you know what, these guys picked a Lycan and a Rasta, we're going to go aggressive with a Wisp and a Luna, which isn't something you really expect, but it was very, very intelligent, very, very smart move. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically just experience through the patch. These teams just are starting to get more and more used to it. So I think Liquid, once they start getting extremely used to this patch, I think they're going to be extremely solid core. Plus, they're using a stand-in, so that's, of course, going to affect the way that they're going to be playing.
Yeah, and, the stand-in MSS, it's not as if he's just some guy who showed up. I mean, for most of last year leading up to the International, he was a stand-in all-star. I remember seeing him play on 3 different teams just through D2L, let alone everywhere else. So, I mean, it's not as if he hasn't played with these players, and it is as if he knows how to jive with them. But still, Koikva in particular is such a young player and such a natural playmaker out of that off-lane position. And, Liquid is one of those teams that does something a little bit different. Some teams do it once in a while, but Liquid actually does it a lot, where they don't really have a mid and an off lane. They just have 2 solo players. They have Bulba and Koikva, and depending on what heroes they draft or what they feel like they need out of each lane, they will swap them out. So that's one dynamic of what Liquid is known for that is missing in Koikva's absence.
Yeah, absolutely. And overall, just Bulba is a great. His movement around the map is usually almost pristine. He always finds the opportunities to get the kills, which they really need to find, and he always goes for the kills, which are important. He doesn't just go and kill support or something useless. He goes for the carry. He goes for this role that he knows he needs to kill. And then in the meantime, while all this is happening, Koifa is also making space. He's always all over the place. MSS, though, he is a great player, and he can pull anything out as well. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, MSS is one of those guys. He's very much a momentum player. Whenever he gets off to a good start, he can take a game over, make no mistake.
Absolutely.
But if you're able to hold him down and make him struggle, no matter what position he happens to be playing, does seem like he does have some problems finding his own rhythm. And, we saw yesterday that eHug was not shy about pulling the trigger on aggression. And honestly, I feel like that was the best thing you can do, or is the best thing you can do, in a situation like this. You're the underdogs. There has to be an element of it where you're playing with house money. You're coming in with very low expectations. You're coming in just playing your game, and if you lose, you lose, and that's not going to surprise anyone. But if you can sneak up and get a win on one of these teams, it's huge for you, so you can just sit back and have fun. Sit back, play your game, and not feel that pressure. And the fact that they're willing to just take those brave picks, take the brave position, and not try to just find a rhythm that is much more comfortable, instead wanting to put their opponents under pressure early, I think that bodes well looking ahead to this game. And now, with finally some picks out, we see the Invoker drafted by eHug, Nature's Prophet, and the very popular popular Bad Rider, who, I mean, famously was picked and banned in 100% of pro matches for what, 3-4 straight months leading up to the International, now finally resurging in popularity.
Yeah, I mean, during that period, though, Bad Rider was extremely powerful. He's gotten a couple nerfs, and he still is getting picked now, first two. He's just gotten this small little buffs that made him back into the metagame, and the way the hero works in general, he just can find the pickoffs so easily, and it's just, he puts so much pressure on your game once you think he could have that Blink Dagger so early. You have to play so careful. And now, actually, I'm really glad to see this, though. We have not seen a Furion yet in this tournament, so I'm excited to watch some Furion play. And Liquid doing something that I actually haven't seen them do since yesterday, I feel like this kind of reveals their lanes a little bit. Yeah. Because, you know what, you're not really, I don't know if unless they want to do a Furion support, which we've seen a couple times, but I feel like this is pretty standard. We're going to see the Furion in the off lane and Bat Rider being played by Bulba in the mid lane.
Yeah, I think that's pretty expected. One thing I do really like about these two heroes, especially in the way that they tend to work, they do reveal lanes usually, like you had said, and they also reveal strategy a little bit just because they're so good at just pressuring the whole map. Yep. Bat Rider doesn't really care. Once he gets up a Blink Dagger and brown boots in a bottle, he can just go, and you can start to run, free space up, but Nature's Prophet just synergizes so well with that, because if you execute a decent gank somewhere, say on another lane, Prophet can even be there to help and then teleport to push somewhere else, or he can be pushing and say, oh, do you need me? You don't? Fine, I'll take a tier 1.
Yeah, or he can just, he's pushing someone, he's like, yeah, I'll just throw my ultimate.
Exactly,
there you go.
One. And that's something that's actually really worth mentioning, too, that I don't feel like really gets talked about enough. It is really hard to run an aggressive tri-lane into a Nature's Prophet.
Absolutely.
Really hard. As soon as he hits level 6, his Nature's Wrath just bones the enemy offensive tri-lane. As soon as there's an engagement, you're talking your supports are missing 30 to 40% of their health, just like that.
And even just before that, he can just teleport in and makes it an intense, like you can't really fight against that. If they have 2 or 3 people there, it becomes another person just in the scenario.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to be seeing an aggressive tri-lane coming out of Team eHug after the performance of yesterday. So now we're seeing an Ember Spirit ban for eHug, and we see the Slardar ban out of Liquid. And we know eHug is very, very familiar with this Slardar. They really like playing this hero.
Well, you and I were talking extensively. I like the Lifestealer pickup there, and we'll get to that in a moment. But you and I have talked extensively, personally and with other players. I mean, both of us kind of the same mind. Slardar's a hero that I feel like is very undervalued and underrated, would fit in with a lot of lineups just because he is a go-fight hero. He's not a hero who needs to farm. He certainly can a little bit. He's not going to farm you to a very solid late game unless you have him with another core. But, just the options that are available to you when you draft a Slardar. Quick Roshans are good. He's an excellent anti-carry so long as he rushes an early mobility item. So on and so forth. With Liquid, though, they now have 2 very reliable ways for that Lifestealer to get into these fights. Bat Rider Lasso, whenever he goes after that target, and I really love seeing a Lifestealer and a Nature's Prophet together. The global presence of Nature's Prophet is good enough. Now infest the Lifestealer into him. That is all you need to run a 2-man gank squad.
Yeah, it's absolutely devastating. But also, going back to the Slardar thing too, people, I guess, kind of overlook it, but this hero has just constantly gotten buffed. He hasn't gotten a single nerf to hit him. First he gets, his Amplify got increased, went from very low, went from 5 to 8, and then now it's way more. Then Sprint costs 0 mana. Then they make it so his Bash does more damage. And then they make it so Blink costs 0 mana. So they're just all huge buffs to this hero. And now we see a Weaver picked up by eHug, which is a great pick versus Lifestealer, and also versus Bat Rider and Furion, because he has high mobility and he's very hard to catch.
Yeah, and it creates a new wrinkle. Weaver usually going to rush that Lincolns. Now all of a sudden you have to worry about popping his Lincolns if you want to lasso in, and so on and so forth. But for the moment, it's just, I'd like the way eHug is drafting. Now the Disruptor pick. I was curious what they were going to go with. Disruptor, an excellent answer to that, Weaver. Being able to silence him out with Static Storm. Disruptor, actually a hero that can scale fairly well if you get him farmed enough to, say, get a Scepter. Once you talk about the absolute huge range of Static Storm on top of Kinetic Field to lock that Weaver down, that gives him an answer. And Thunderstrike is really nice to pop a Lincoln Sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. He has both those spells to pop a Lincoln Sphere, and that AoE silence versus all 3 of those heroes is very, very powerful.
Team Liquid's turn
and
to
still
ban.
waiting on the rest of the draft to take shape. The Abaddon, or Abaddon, I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm really, really not sure. But, it's one of those things. I'm sure there are plenty of people who will talk to us about the proper way to pronounce that. Looks like we did have a Dota TV issue. It should be resolved now. That's what we were doing there just for a moment. But, yeah, I mean, eHug now having the Abaddon to help out the Weaver in terms of pure survivability. They do have the ability to put some pressure on. Whenever you talk about those core 3, having the Visage obviously works really well in any aggressive situation. Weaver, very, very easy for him to pressure and to be aggressive with Shikuchi. And then the Abaddon being able to throw on the aphotic shield gives you a little bit of lane sustain with miscoil as well. So eHug, I feel like, has their options open to them. They can go aggressive if they want, especially since Disruptor, as good as the hero can be, he is a little bit weak in lane. He is a bit easy to pressure and a bit easy to bully around.
A little bit, but he has gotten a couple buffs. The Thunderstrike actually does an outstanding amount of damage now. But also Abaddon, the shield removes, of course, the Batrider lasso and everything. And overall, like, people really overlook this hero. Although he has really terrible chase, they do have the making up for it with the Invoker. So I think the only thing the Team eHug's team really lacks is that their catching ability. The Invoker's really going to make up for it, but they don't really have any straight-up lockdown at all. They have the Visage Birds, they have a couple slows and everything, but no real straight-up stuns except for like the Tornado and Cold Snap.
And we actually see them ban out the Rasta, and that's a hero that would have fit in very, very well with Liquid. Easy to see why having the push power of a Nature's Prophet and a Rasta absolutely huge, and the lockdown as well. And that's Rasta is one of those heroes who just does well against the Weaver for the most part. He has 2 great spells to either pop in Lincolns or just flat to lock him down. You can Hex and Shackle if you have the Lincolns popped first and foremost, and that's a long duration that he is stunned out. And of course, again, you can try to ward trap him if time lapse has been popped as well. So a lot of ways to try and use that hero against a Weaver, and just not going to allow it through so far. But when you look at Liquid and the way their lanes are likely to take shape, Liquid, I mean, the Nature's Prophet, as you said, you would imagine that'll be an off lane with a mid bat. They could try to switch that up though, and it's been a long time. But Liquid was one of those teams that you used to occasionally see run a mid Nature's Prophet.
Yeah, it still could be a possibility. I don't think we'll be seeing it now. We see a Rubik picked up by Liquid as well, and now that's. I think we're going to be seeing just the standard lanes coming out of Liquid. But this Rubik pick is actually really, really good, in my opinion. Shukuchi, amazing spell to steal always. And then even if you start getting Aphotic Shield and Miscoil not so much because, it hurts you. But Aphotic Shield is an extremely powerful spell to steal later on. That's 6-second cooldown. It's basically a 200 heal, 6-second cooldown that removes debuffs. So absolutely amazing. I think that's a great pick by Liquid right there.
Absolutely. eHug waiting to show us our last pickup here, but part of me really hopes that they do decide to go aggressive here. Again, you come into the underdogs, and Liquid, I mean, let's be honest, when Liquid falls behind, well, that's, it's even as soon as I start to say that. We've seen some comebacks already on the big stage today, some excellent turnarounds on both sides. And but Liquid, they're very momentum-based right now. They're actually going to go ahead and show us a Wraith King. Now, that Wraith King pick is something that you and I have talked about, and you were saying just over dinner the other night, you expected him to start seeing a bit more play.
Yeah, the hero's extremely powerful. I mean, an 8-second stun, 8-second cooldown stun with a 2-second duration and a 2-second slow afterwards, and pretty decent burst potential, and how tanky this hero naturally is.
Yeah.
Plus, he gives lifesteal to all your heroes, including ranged heroes, so Weaver benefits from that extremely. And then Reincarnate now is absolutely massive, and it slows so much. I think this is the pick that they were saying with their little trick that Jigglebilly was saying, because I know we saw a couple people talking about it, saying like, oh, you should pick this Wraith King and stuff. So I'm really glad to be seeing this, and I really want to see some big plays out of Jiggle today.
Well, and something that, Wraith King was getting some play a few weeks ago. He kind of fell off a little bit after that, but very common to see a Necrobook rushed on him. And, whenever you talk about the ways that you can try to play that hero out, eHug has a surprising amount of push. When you talk about Visage Familiars, you talk about Weaver, if he's able to get a Desolator up, and depending on how the Invoker builds, if he wants to go with an Exor build, he can even try to split push in and out quite a bit. But so far as eHug and their options and how they're going to play this game out, really excited to see what they have in store for us. Of course, going to have the Game 1 pause is so very, very common. I want to welcome everyone in as the crowd has assembled. The doors opened just a little while ago here at South by Southwest, the Gaming Expo. And welcome in to everyone who is joining us live here in Austin. Of course, welcome in to everyone on Dota TV as well as live via the stream. And yesterday we had some issues with Dota TV. The patch went in, and no one kind of knew what we needed to do to get that back up. But we're all squared away on that, so make sure you let everyone know. Yes, Dota TV is working this time around.
And yeah, we were right about the lanes and everything. But eHug's actually doing something very interesting, which we do see. I mean, we haven't seen in a while, but people do this with an Abaddon. They're doing these dual lanes. So Weaver Abaddon is a very, very strong dual lane. And Visage Wraith King can hold their own, and they can get a lot of farm up there. That's giving Visage full reign on pulling, getting all the experience from the pulls, and giving Jigglebilly a nice amount of farm in the lane. Absolutely.
And hopefully, whatever's taking place on stage won't be that big of a deal. But, I mean, it looks like we're having to have a reconnect on the Furion, actually. So MSS having some sort of an issue, should be back up and running momentarily. But, you know, just taking a look at how this is going to end up working out, I do feel like eHug is going to be under the gun a little bit to make sure that they execute a lot early. I mean, the Wraith King pick, really a big fan of that. I'm anxious to see what they're going to be able to do with that. And they will be farming him hard, as it is Jiggle, who will be playing on the hero and moving up into the safe lane. But in terms of heroes that can get behind and sometimes can have a hard time catching up, they've got a few of them. I mean, Visage, whenever he doesn't have that good early game, as you usually want him to do, the Scepter can be very late. Invoker, though he is just a massive hero on the map in terms of pure control, can have some trouble catching up. A Weaver who's late on his survivability items, be it a BKB or a Lincoln Sphere, can have some issues. Whereas with Liquid, you have two heroes in the Nature's Prophet and the Bad Rider, who if they get behind, they just dip into the jungle for a little bit, play defensive, and they can get massive amounts of gold.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this mid lane and the bottom lane, of course. I don't know how I feel about the Abaddon with the Weaver versus the lane that Liquid has, because they can really get punished, and they're not really going to be able to get anything if Liquid does it properly. And Liquid's going to be getting a lot out of all the pulls unless they get a quick block up on that pulls camp.
And we can see moving out is 4. Liquid.
Yeah, Liquid's a little bit worried about, just in case they might try to sneak a Roshan, so they put a Treant in there, because, you know, Wraith King and, of course, all the other heroes that they have really are pretty damn good at doing a sneaky Rosh.
Yep, it's one of those situations where just the presence of the Wraith King with that Vampiric Aura means you have to be careful. You can't just assume it's not going to happen. Looks like we're not going to have anything taking place here before the creep spawns. How about we run through our lineups and see who's handling who? On the side of Liquid, we'll have Disruptor, played by Way 2 Sekshi. The Nature's Prophet, going to be played by MSS, of course, standing in for Quakeba. Fluff will be handling our Rubik, with the Bad Rider, played by Bulba. He is sitting up shop in mid, so no surprise there. And TC, farming the Lifestealer. And this is definitely one of TC's more stable heroes in terms of what he's able to do. Pandego will be playing on our Abaddon on the side of eHug. Weaver, going to be taken to the bottom lane by Cakes. Going to be Rheaboros taking Invoker mid. No surprise there, with the Wraith King farmed up by Jigglebilly, and Visage going to be played by Imashi.
Yeah, and I just really want to take a look at this mid lane. I'm assuming this is going to be a Quaswex this game, not an Exort like Boba did, but who knows? Anything could happen right now. Let's see what they could do.
Well, I think a lot of it just comes down to what their goals are going to be. Again, they do have a fair, they're going to go straight with the Quas pick up that time, but we'll have to see where his second point goes. But yeah, they do have a deceptive amount of push if they want to try and go with an Exort Invoker build. They certainly have the ability to burst heroes down early on, but for right now, Liquid just trying to push out eHug, and eHug is in a little bit of trouble. As we can see, Cakes is actually going to be he's actually going to be glimpsed back, and now the open wounds connects, and yeah, Cakes is first blood. Not the start you wanted.
This is what I was very worried about in this bottom lane. They have a lot of things to just break the shield, and they don't really have to worry about him just shielding off anything, because if open wounds goes off, it's not really that powerful versus the Weaver, but then they can just glimpse him back if they have the vision, and they do have the vision, so.
1 minute in, it's 1-0, and Liquid off to a good start. And now, you know, the issue is Pandego, I mean, even Way 2 just on this Disruptor is able to do a considerable amount of harass to keep him out. Cakes, as we saw already, giving up. I mean, he's going to be able to come back in the lane and maybe hang around, but they certainly have to be a lot more careful about what they decide they want to do.
Yeah, and their lane's pushing in extremely hard right now, and Liquid's pulling, so they have to be a little bit careful. They don't really want to overcommit and get caught out like that and give another free kill. Even though they do have this side ward down, and they did actually, I think they did counter that lane ward.
And taking a look at the early CS, we can see Jiggle on our Wraith King in quite good position. A little bit of a chase going on as Fluff and Way 2 are trying to run eHug out as they try to do a little creep skipping, try to grab some of those pull creeps and manage to get a couple. But as of right now, definitely looks like the lanes are going Liquid's way. TC on the LS leading the way in terms of pure CS. Wraith King, played by Jiggle's, doing okay. He's right there with him at 9, but Bulba doing great in mid, sitting at 11 right now.
And the Rhyboros actually does go for the Exort. He decided to go for Quaswex, so I feel like it was a little bit strange. I feel like he could have had a couple more CS if he decided to go for the Exort build. But yeah, Bulba right now is really leading the CS board in this mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, it's one thing to be trading even or be doing a decent job, but at this point, I mean, he's just flat out dominating him in that mid lane, making it very, very difficult. And he's going to start to have really nice rune control. He's already got a double damage up. And Invoker, especially when you decide to go with a pure Exort build, you're not going to have the escapability of a QQ walk, of a Ghost walk to get you out of trouble. So he has to watch very careful about the number of stacks he gets on him, and has to watch very carefully as to when that lasso comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bulba's already got his boots and his bottles up, while the Invoker only has boots. So Bulba's just doing very well for himself right now. And with this DD room, he should be able to secure a couple denies on top of a lot of last hits.
And Cakes taking a lot of damage already. Pandego and Cakes being forced out once again. And there's going to be
There's
the
a glimpse.
back. Pandego in trouble. Open wounds is there. However, Aphotic Shield purges it off. Cake's doing what damage he can with the Shikuchi. But they're just being run out of lane almost completely. You look at the farm, he's got 5 CS to the 13 of TC. The status quo is not working. Up at top, though, looks like we might have an engagement. MSS barely able to make it away as he escapes out of that top lane just by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's not too strong about this Wraith King Visage. Yes, the Wraith King stun is very low cooldown, but Furion, if he just teleports at the proper time, he can really survive in that lane. Bottom lanes actually has a huge wave coming into this tower, so Cakes and Pandego are actually going to benefit a lot from that.
And Rioboros finally starting to catch up a little bit. He's up to 14 CS to the 18 of the Bad Rider, so that point into Exort very desperately needed. He's actually gone pure 2-2, so it's not going to be an early hybrid build at all. Cakes and Pandego, as you mentioned, already being shoved up under their own towers. So, I mean, if you're in the shoes of eHug right now, Fog, how do you plan to get things back on track? I mean, Jiggle is farming well, but, I mean, the Wraith King takes so long to really get into gear unless your other lanes are doing well as well.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think everything's... They shouldn't really be worrying too much. The first blood was really unfortunate by them, and they shouldn't have given that away. But right now, they can just keep calm, let everything happen the way it is. Jiggle has a good amount more farm than the Lifestealer, so they know that they're probably pressuring the Lifestealer a bit with this dual lane. So I would say that they can stick with this, and it's perfectly fine.
And so far, both lanes are being fairly quiet now. I mean, 4.5 minutes in, we haven't seen a whole lot of movement and rotations. Mostly it's just been a pure laning phase, but that could end up changing soon as MSS is beginning to get some levels under his belt. He's up to level 4.5. He's not so far away from his Midas, has up his Gloves of Haste and so on. But the jungle continues to be a big point of contesting here for eHug as they just try to soak what experience they can. And taking a look at the early goal graph, it's actually dead even. We can see there was a big lead that was going the way of
We do see
Liquid.
Fluff smoked up, and he's trying to gank this mid lane right now. He's doing it from a little bit of a weird angle. He's going to get hit by the tower a few times, but if Boba does get 1 or 2 more stickies up, they're going to go. And they're just going anyway.
Yep, and he's going to be tossed back down the hill. There's immediate reaction, but the lasso there at level 6, four stacks of sticky. And, yep, able to get him. And now Bulba finished up with a well-placed Sunstrike. Good sprout coming out of MSS. Sheep in trouble and brought down. So Liquid ends up trading 2 for 1. They actually lost a Disruptor elsewhere as well. TC forced out at bottom, so it looks like eHug able to capitalize on just knowing what was going on in mid and making something happen in bottom as well. So as the dust settles, make it 3-2.
Yeah, I actually thought that was going to be Pandego TPing into the mid lane to try to save his Invoker, but I guess they were doing something bottom, and they actually got a kill on way 2 there in the meantime. So very good rotation by the Visage and by MSS, which that kill for MSS is actually quite massive because now he's level 6 and he's very close to his Midas.
40 CS right now for Jiggle Billy, and really opening up that gap. And really, when you look at the gold graph and how much ground they've managed to make up, a lot of that does have to do with him just up in that lane. I mean, it wasn't a gigantic gap to begin with, and you talk about the lead that he's managed to generate. I mean, what do you expect his build to be when we look at the items he's going to want to pick up? Obviously, the Midas already in production, and actually has it right at this second. Following that, though, what build do you think is going to fit into this lineup the most?
I mean, it all depends. I know I've seen some people do this Radiance build. I don't really agree with that, to be honest with you. I think Armlet is an amazing pickup. Just going Treads, Midas, Armlet. If you get it, if this right, he'll be getting it by the 13-minute mark. So he's going to be absolutely massive and just devastating versus the Liquid lineup.
TC continuing to try to find his farm as well. And
yeah, but TC's getting a lot of pressure on him. If we look, Jiggle's 17 CS ahead of him, and now I think Furion just picks up his Midas, and I think there should be a Midas recipe on the courier for TC, and it is.
Yep, there is. So TC, this is going to be a farming game, at least the way it seems for the moment. I'm anxious to see when Bulba's going to begin to try to be more active on the bat, though. He's mostly hung out here, and he certainly made some things happen in mid, along with the help of Fluff. But, their lineup, I feel like they need to pressure this Wraith King a little bit because he's being left totally to his own devices, and he's in such great shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they kill him once, and that slow goes off, Visage, if he's in the proper position, and if you have his familiars at that point, it's pretty damn strong. And Visage actually has great levels under his belt. He's about to be level 6 up there.
Oh, yeah. And again, 50 CS to TC. So even though this duo lane gave up first blood, we see Weaver is hurting a little bit in the CS department. But after managing to bring down the Disruptor and being able to just catch up in the absence of Fluff, this is actually going pretty well in eHug's favor. They're going to try to loop around now to get that under control. Open wounds on a Pandego. He's going to be the target. Uses the Aphotic Shield to purge and get some damage done. Cakes is there to try to help, but both are going to end up dead as the kinetic field is there. Shikuchi's going to wear off, and down he goes.
That was great play by Liquid there. They used the Rubik Lift, so the drop actually stunned the Weaver as well, and then they got the kinetic field up on him as well. And MSS, beautiful Fury, and all perfect timing for that. And TC finishes up his Midas in a decent time. A little bit slow, So I think eHug is actually doing quite well with the lanes that they're doing. Even though they're losing in kills right now, they are putting a bit of pressure on TC in the meantime.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's such if you want to disjoint TC on the lifestealer in particular, just don't let him farm. TC becomes an absolute monster when he's left to his own devices, especially with a greedy build like a Midas. But if they can keep pressure up elsewhere, make him come to fights, or just flat out pressure him, they're going to be able to build on what they've built so far. And to be honest, yeah, I mean, you look, Liquid, again, back up to the lead after those 2 kills, but still hovering at just 250. The experience a little bit more in their favor, but I feel like eHug is holding their own quite admirably.
Yeah, absolutely. That experience in gold right now is absolutely negligible at this point. And Jiggle Billy's just getting so much farm that I think it's perfectly fine with what's happening right now. And now they're going to start putting a little bit of pressure on this top tower. Visage already being level 7 as well, so Sheep is doing a very good job up there right now.
Yep, already treads up with that Midas, a Jiggle in great shape. And now the movement beginning to take place. We see Fluff making his way through the jungle. He's going to be joining up with Bulba here in mid. They might try to make a run at this Invoker. Rioboro sitting at level 8.5, and looks like a 4 staff going to be his choice as he has a Staff of Wizardry already complete. And they're actually just going to go ahead and make some room for Bulba to dip into the jungle and get a little bit further ahead. In fact, he's going to have his Blink Dagger very, very soon. You're talking about a 10.5 minute blink if this keeps up.
I think it's going to be way sooner than that. He's going to have it actually very, very soon. He's going to go back toward this mid lane. He's giving Rubik a couple levels. That's probably why he rotated in the jungle. And now he's just going to... Actually, he's just walking around right now, but he might head toward top and try to set up a gank toward there. Or just go back into his mid lane and get his blink really soon. We'll see what he decides to do.
We see MSS on his way to some phase boots. He'll have those up momentarily. Cakes already has up his Aquila and has up a Ring of Health as well. So again, I'm really, really impressed with the way he managed to bounce back out of this bottom lane. Giving up first blood and then just playing tight. I mean, obviously they died again. That doesn't help things at all. But they have managed to stunt TC's item development a little bit up at top. That's going to be where Liquid decides to put the pressure on. Bulba, Waitu, as well as Fluff, going to try to make a run and going to succeed as they grab I'm a Sheep. Down goes the Static Storm and Kinetic Field, and Jiggle is caught inside of it. Could not have executed it better. Waitu maybe a little too far forward there, but MS there to help. Now that Jiggle's back up, Pandago there to help him out as well. Here comes the Sunstrike that's going to be off the mark. The Familiars, though, are going to be able to clean up MSS. So they end up trading 1 for 1. And, yeah, that's just the strength of a Wraith King. The fact that, you know, it bought time. The slow that came out and the reincarnation time bought just enough time for eHug to respond and get a return kill. In fact, I would say their return kill was much more valuable than the kill that Liquid got.
Absolutely. I think eHug was benefited way more from that, because not only did they get this Furon, who has really high levels, he's level 8 at this point, and his Midas was up while he died, so that's really unfortunate for MSS. But Liquid expended 3 ultimates there to try to just kill a support, basically. Yes, they got the Wraith King ulti down too, but he didn't die, so he lost nothing out of that.
And we can see now Liquid putting some pressure on the mid. Waitu, Fluff, and Bulba going to be running together for a while, along with MSS. Pressuring down mid tower, Pandago can't do anything by himself. They're going to try to trade tier 1s. Is up the top. eHug has already brought down the tier 1. And Bulba thinking about maybe diving. Doesn't have Lasso up for 20 seconds, though. They do manage to take the tower, but just using that flame trail from Firefly to try and stunt any response. A little bit of goodbye damage from our Weaver, but for the most part, just a free tower for them. So 6-3, Liquid doubling them up in kills. We're even on towers. The gold is heading in eHug's favor, though.
Yeah, pretty even, though. Cakes finds a nice regen rune, which really helps him out because he was completely out of mana there. And we look a little bit at the wards, too. eHug has some very aggressive ward up in the jungle, so they're going to be seeing Bulba just jungling, and that's so huge because then they know Bulba's not ganking at this time.
Yep.
He's wasting time farming, and they see it. So it's great ward right there by eHug.
Taking a look at some of the item development, Riaboros did finish his 4 staff as we speak. Fluff saw he had the Sage's Mask and finishes up his urn. And, you know, seeing an urn pick up on a Rubik like this, I don't think Liquid's going to want to sit back and farm this game. They're going to try to create space for TC, and they're going to try to tally a lot of kills. They do have a lineup with a ton of aggression, and it's a lineup that's actually really difficult to retreat from because of the presence of the Disruptor and the Furion. Not to mention, whenever you have a Bat Rider trying to run from him, knowing he can blink and catch a straggler, makes it very...
very aggressive move by Ryo. But that is a very aggressive move, but also it could risk that they now know that that ward might be there.
Yeah.
So, whatever. It forced Bat Rider away, and he's now forced to go mad to the mid lane. But now, all learning this, they know Bulba's not ganking, so they can play a little bit safe, and a little bit risky, and they can just farm up. And I actually wanted to point something out. Jigglebilly actually only got 1 point in his Wraith King stun. So if Rubik steals spells from him, it's only level 1 stun. Yeah, it's a stun, but the damage is not huge.
Yep, actually maxing out that Vampiric Aura as well as his Mortal Strike on top of that. So I think eHug is playing great today. We're going to see Liquid try to make a run at I'm a Sheep. Perhaps. Way 2 drops a ward. Actually got spotted there as he managed to snag the aggro of a creep. There's going to be a reaction. Here comes Jiggle. He's going to spot Way 2. Thought about trying to stun. However, Bulba's there with the lasso. Visage Familiars and Static Storm.
Great Visage Burn stuns there.
Absolutely. Not going to be enough to save Jiggle, and his ulti was on cooldown, but they're going to get Bulba in return, and behind that, Ryu still trying to chase down Fluff and Way 2, but moving
Mid
very,
lane as
very
well,
slow.
Pandago is getting chased out by TC and MSS.
Pandago, sprouted, eats his way through, and still being pursued by TC. He's got Visage Familiar Birds.
Yeah, they don't want to risk chasing that.
Yep. And the Birds even make it away. A little bit of health to rub together, but 26, all they needed. So 7-4. eHug, losing the Wraith King there hurts, but, Bulba so far has not been nearly as effective on the bat as I think he would like to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And during all this, Cakes has not ported to react to any of these team fights, so he's just been farming and pressuring this lane, and he could even get this bottom tower quite soon.
Yep. We're going to see MSS come down to try and keep things up. Only 200 HP on the tower, not quite in deny range yet. But this is shaping up to be a very, very good match. And, taking a look at TC, we haven't talked about him for a while. He's gone Phage Drums following the Midas pickup. Very likely he'll go ahead and grab a Sanj and Yasha coming out, going through his build as well. But still needs a little bit more time to develop, and that's going to be time that eHug can use to their advantage. Now, when it comes to this Wraith King, I'm curious if they're just going to try to farm him 100% straight up like a 1 and just make space for him, or if they're going to start getting him more active and maybe get more of a mid-game item on him. Again, Necrobook, very popular on the Wraith King.
He's going for the armlet, though. He already has 2 of the pieces up on the courier, so
okay.
that is a nice mid-game item, but it's also just such an excellent item on all these strength carry heroes.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
And Ryu's finding a great amount of farm. I mean, he has his 4 staff and almost another 2,000 gold up on him, so we can either see him go up for maybe even travels or something like this, and hopefully we see something interesting like that, because they do have the Visage Birds, so they do have their own ganking potential. Visage picks up his medallion in the meantime. Jiggle's very close to his armlet as well, and we see the Furion's going for Lothar's.
Yeah, Shadow Blade build, notice that. He already picked up the Shadow Amulet, so making very good progress.
And I think that's a great pickup, because like I was saying before, eHug does not have the most catch, so this Lothar's is really going to make MSS basically unkillable.
The rest of the map kind of quiet for the moment. We can see TC playing a little bit brave, but he knows he can get away with it. Very, very fast with his phase and his drums. And you think this is the right call from eHug? Just like eHug right now hasn't really been the aggressors for the most part. I mean, they've been responding very well, but they've been playing a very reactionary game of Dota. Do you think this is what they need to be doing, or should they be getting a little bit more aggressive with the potential they have?
I think what they're doing is actually perfectly fine, because they kind of have a tri-core lineup when you really look at it. Exort Invoker kind of becomes like a core hero. And Ryboris might be getting gone on up here. Batrider with the Haste Rune, and they're smoked up.
Tucked up under his own tier 1, not going to be very safe, and here we go. Bulba grabbing him, dragging him back right into the kinetic field. Static Storm there just to secure the kill, make sure he goes nowhere. And Fluff even managed to take a spell for the road.
That's actually massive.
Yep.
Rubik with these double Fort Spirits is so powerful, and they're going to be able to take this tower. Should be pretty easily, at least.
TP coming in, MSS showing up to take the tier 1, and really, looks like eHug going to try to trade the Roshan for it. They pop his spell shield and move in there, and this is where that Vampiric Aura really comes into play, helps out a ton.
Yeah, absolutely.
Top tower
and
fallen.
Liquid doesn't really seem to be knowing that this is going on at all. They really shouldn't. I mean, they don't really have any wards down on the map at all, so this should be a free Roshan for them, and that's a great exchange. I mean, yes, they lost Invoker and they lost the tower, but they get a free Aegis, and now they have to kill this Wraith King 3 times.
They're going to keep pushing through top. Let's see if eHug is going to be able to get there in time. Don't see any teleports taking place as of yet. But moving through, TC trying to clear the jungle to the south. Now we're going to see a teleport in, as it looks like they want to contest this tier 2. They do have a glyph. If they want to pop it, they're going to be moving from the south. They're going to end up spotting most likely. Nope, Way 2 just dropping some wards, so they're going to know they're coming. Let's see how committed to this they are. Just leaving MSS up front. Does have his Shadow Blade done. And we're going to hear a glimpse, actually. And didn't even hear who it was or where he sent him. But
just sent Jiggle back a little bit. It was just a safe thing, so he doesn't get stunned up. And yeah, that was a great play by Liquid there. They put as much pressure as possible in the tower, and they know that eHug does not have the best catching and chasing hero, so they got a lot of damage on this tower absolutely for free and lost nobody out of it.
Yep, and the tower just about in deny range, honestly. Very, very close, sitting at 167. Very, very close to being able to take that down. All this time, TC has been farming on his own. He's actually going to go straight for the armlet. That's usually when you see the armlet come out, it's going to come out a little bit earlier. But I guess he did just go phase drum, so certainly a very nice option for him. But, here's going to be the battle. Jiggle versus TC. And I really like Jiggle's positioning right now. Like you've talked about, the strength of the ultimate, just so good, buys time, lets people react. But the way these two heroes match up in the late game, I'm beginning to feel like Liquid's actually the team that needs to be feeling a little bit of pressure to try and shut him down.
Yeah, absolutely. Cakes is on way to his Lincolns. He's got his Perseverance and 1,000 gold up, so he's not that close. But Ryobor has also finished up his Necro 1. We have Pendago's got his Arcane Boots, which is really all you need on an Abaddon anyway. Visage is finding a decent amount of farm. He's got his medallion picked up. He's about to be buying his point booster very soon. And also pointing out MSS's items, not going for the standard Hex or Book after their Lothars or whatever they want to go on Furion. He's going for an Orchid, which I think is an amazing item versus this Abaddon, because you can just run in and Orchid him and completely ignore that hero entirely for 6 seconds and focus somebody else and just really blow them up, and he can't heal them.
Taking a look across the rest of the map, 2,000 gold set away for Jiggle Billy right now. But yeah, coming back around to that Orchid pickup, there are so many heroes you can pick that item up on that are not considered traditional. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I remember there was a time not long ago where you would actually see Orchid as somewhat of a mid to late game item, even on a Lifestealer.
Cakes is getting gone on right now.
Yep, Cakes, drug back, Static Storm, maybe a little bit of overkill, but securing the kill nonetheless. And Liquid continuing to find their picks. But they're not, they did a decent job at taking the Tier 1 and just about the Tier 2 at top. But these picks, I don't think they're translating to as much as they would like. They are beginning to build a little bit of a gold lead. You're talking 19 minutes, about 2,500 gold in their advantage. But that's not, the biggest deal in the world. And, talking about late game, I just really do favor Jiggle Billy if it ends up being all things being equal.
Yeah, absolutely, especially because they have the Roshan advantage as well with the Vampiric and everything. And Jiggle's just going stats, so he's going to be hitting like a truck, and he's going to be extremely tanky. And yeah, Liquid just takes down a tower bottom. And is there deny? No, there isn't, but very close.
Bottom tower
TP canceled. Would have been a hot LZ, and not wanting to take any chances there. Up at top, though, we can see TC and Jiggle right on top of each other. And yeah, TC really can't do a whole lot. In fact, yeah, has to rage out of the stun from Jiggle, and Jiggle's got to be feeling, very man-modish. He's got 3 lives right now.
Yeah, but Liquid also knows that Jiggle canceled his port to bottom.
Yep.
So they can really just pressure this tower a little bit cocky.
Yep. And their push, not the best in the world with these heroes. MSS certainly helps there, but yeah, 2-3 heroes there, especially 4, more than enough.
And Fluff's getting all the spells he wants. He's getting pretty close to his 4-step. He's having a great game right now. He's 2-0-7 on this Rubik. He's got his Urn, Arcane Boots on his way to his 4-step, and he has Chikuchi. Looks like Way 2's going toward the Secret Shop to pick up a point booster, so we are going to be seeing the Ags Rush coming out of the Disruptor.
And, that's not really all that surprising. Again, Static Storm with the Ags. It's a buff that went in, and, I've seen situationally used, but, whenever it comes out in games like this where it's going to be very close if the game goes very, very late, like you said, eHug with a lineup that more or less translates into a tri-core lineup, they do have the advantage. When you look at the Nature's Prophet, though, he can be a core and usually does transition eventually to pure right-click. There might have to do that sooner rather than later, though. The Sheepstick would seem to be pretty essential in trying to cope with Wraith King as he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, there's actually, like you said, going to be getting the Orchid. But, just having anything to help cope with that. But this is definitely Liquid's time to shine. 20 minutes in, they need to make sure they break this map down and start to strangle eHug out. Otherwise, they're just going to be losing in the late game exchanges.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way the eHug can split push is also pretty close to the way that Liquid can split push. Yes, Furion can do a crazy amount of split pushing, but they do have this Invoker who's going to be having his Book 2 very soon, and they do have Visage Birds plus Forge Spirits.
Ooh, that Courier came very close to dying. He actually took 2 auto attacks from Weaver, and if he had procced Geminate attack, he would have dropped. He made it away. Take a look at his health. The Radiant Courier.
Yeah, it lived with like 5 health or 3 health
so
initially.
Close. In the meantime, MSS, though, finds a little bit of space and manages to bring down that Tier 2 at top. eHug, though, beginning to feel their own strength. They're going to start to run down mid. Mid-tier 1, quite low, sitting at only 330 HP. Liquid is going to want to contest this, one would imagine. If not this, maybe the tier 2, because I honestly think eHug's in a position where they could push, but nope. They're going to try to force a reaction just by pressuring the tier 3. They do have a glyph, so they should have time to retreat. Jiggle, though, just man-moning right into them. It's going to be a Maelstrom build on TC's Lifestealer, so continuing to go with that.
Jiggle's just running at them all alone right now. He's got this Desolator picked up, so he's hitting extremely hard.
We can see Fluff taking quite a bit of damage. Here comes Bulba. They're going to glimpse him back, and actually a little bit of miscommunication there. They're going to end up having to retreat because of that. And Way2's play there actually did him a favor. He's eating a little bit of damage, but had Rioboros and the rest of his team, or at least Rioboros there to help him. Jiggle will be caught out and brought back into the Static Storm, but
the Aegis actually just wore off right
Yep.
there, so he does not have another life after that.
Yep.
So that he should really just get back and play very careful right now.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at. I thought the Aegis was going to be there for him, but instead popping the ultimate. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of sketchy plays in mid, a little bit of miscommunication from Liquid, and that ends up costing them what could have been a very high-value kill. But I feel like Liquid is falling into a groove now, beginning to force eHug to play even more reactionary, but they still need to be trying to pressure these tier 3s sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah, we actually have not seen an Infest Bomb just yet. Like we were saying before, they did have the Fury on Batrider first 2 and picked Lifestealer right off the bat afterwards. We have not seen the coordination we usually see from Liquid using these Infest Bomb excellently.
Yep, so just as we start to talk about it, we can see
Yeah, right away.
Bulba is locked and loaded, and under cover of smoke, has up his Boots of Travel, Force Staff, and Blink Dagger. So mobility certainly not going to be any kind of a big issue for him. Here comes MSS. He's going to join in with this. They're trying to prompt a reaction. Bulba going to get into position. Ryu would be a big pickup if they can get it. And he's sitting on the high ground and going to go right for, nope, actually shows himself to Pandago, but doesn't end up going for it. Now has to pull back, and we're going to end up having a pause. So not sure what the issue is. Hopefully, oh, lag. That's always fun. Lag on the land, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Bulba's in a kind of a weird spot right now.
Yeah.
He has a lot of people that could be beating on him, but like I said before, they don't have any real solid lockdown. So maybe if Invoker can get like a nice Force Staff onto a Cold Snap onto him, then he will probably get taken down very, very quickly. But they do have to watch out not to clump for the Disruptor ultimate, but Disruptor ulti is down for another couple seconds.
Yep. And, you know, Way2 might be able to jump in and bail him out. I wonder if it was Bulba that was lagging and MSS was just the one to pause, because Bulba's behavior there was a little weird to begin with. He had a couple of targets he certainly could have gone on with TC. Ryu being foremost among them. Pandago was the one he showed himself to, then he backed off. But right now, like you said, really not in the best position. Taking a look at the item development on the side of eHug, we can see that Cakes is in pretty good shape. He's not far from his Lincolns at all, and we'll have that up very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going to make it much more difficult for eHug to try to cope with him, because again, when you look, or for Liquid to try to cope with him, when you look at the lockdown they have some slows, they have some things that can pop Liquid, but in terms, basically it's going to be on Way2Sexy. Way2Sexy is going, his chief job is going to be trying to corral that Weaver. He's going to have help, but they definitely need to coordinate on it.
Yeah, this Weaver has to be super careful. He cannot get caught in this Disruptor ultimate, or he's just going to drop, unless, of course, the Abaddon's in a great position to heal him. But Abaddon has to watch out where he uses his shields, how he uses his heals, because if he uses it improperly one of the times, a lasso can really devastate a team fight.
Bulba turns south, Force Staffs to safety. Still taking some damage from Cakes, who will decide to pursue him out. They do have TC inside. And yeah, they're going to chase this all the way out. Fluff's there to try to help him. He still has Shikuchi, so he can turn around and try to ward them away. Roche should be back up before long. We're actually going to hear TC jump back out and go back to work in the jungle. TC is going to be hitting pretty hard, though. Pretty hard and pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. But although he cannot man-fight this Wraith King, because Wraith King just has such an absurd amount of lifesteal, and with this Desolator, he can really just stand toe-to-toe with TC very, very easily.
Both teams breaking apart a little bit. Bulba has made his way into the dire side jungle, trying to find a little bit of farm. Has MSS there again with that Orchid finished up. Roche is going to be back up just short of 2 minutes from now, so going to be a big engagement there. Who do you think's really in the best position now, though? I mean, we're coming up on 25 minutes. We can see the gold lead is 100% in Liquid's favor. But again, just the later this game goes, I do feel like they're going to start to run out of steam a little bit unless TC just really starts to farm heroes.
It really all depends on how Bulba gets his pickoffs. If they can get a great lasso and even a double Force Staff on Bulba, the Abaddon's not going to be able to do anything with his shield. He's not going to be able to remove the lasso in time. He's probably not going to be able to save his teammate in time. So they have to watch out for that. And if he gets Orchided, of course, that Abaddon's pretty darn worthless. So Liquid, I mean, it's a pretty even game, honestly. Liquid does have a bit of a lead right now. They do have a couple of towers ahead of eHug, and that's basically what's giving them the lead. But I can say that this is completely anybody's game still. Because Wraith King, of course, when he hits level 16, that 60-second cooldown on his ultimate, you're always going to have to kill that hero twice. And he is extremely beefy right now. He's got another 2,700 gold under his belt. Desolator, Armlet, Treads, Midas, up at the 25-minute mark, and Roshan's respawning in about a minute now.
The item development on Liquid, quite solid across the board. Another 1,900 gold for TC on top of a full inventory, or an inventory as full as it's going to be as he wants it to be. Even Way2, though, making very nice progress. He's more than halfway towards his Scepter now. And Scepter, again, you can't underestimate just how big that can be. And eHug, it feels like eHug's beginning to play more and more defensive. And I wonder if that's really going to be the right direction for them to go.
I think it could work for them. They do have this book 3 up on the Invoker already, which is really nice. So they are going to be able to keep up with the split push. Furion shouldn't really be able to just take advantage of all that. But at the same time, they have to watch out because Liquid does have a great ganking combination. They do have this Furion who's getting dangerously close to his Sheepstick, and then they do have the Lifestealer Bomb. So if anybody is out of position anywhere on the map, the Furion and the Lifestealer can just go right there.
Absolutely. And Deso done on the Wraith King, so in terms of what he's going to be able to do, and out damage, we're actually going to see Jiggle, who's actually glimpsed back out, and Way2, though, will be caught out by the Visage Birds. However, the follow-up a little slow in coming. Cakes thought about rushing uphill, thought better of it, and turned around. But yeah, Jiggle right now, when that armlet is activated. Ryu caught out by Bulba. Going to be forced out back into the jungle. Ryu actually able to use the Ghost Walk to keep himself safe. Has that one value point in the
That was
legs.
actually an Invis rune.
Oh, was it?
He
Oh,
caught
yeah.
it right before he got lassoed.
Yep.
So, and
Yeah.
there wasn't really anybody else near Bulba,
Yep.
so that was a little bit of a strange move by Bulba there. But he does have a gem on him, so.
Yep. They're going to be able to take a very fast Roshan off of this. Having the medallion up, having Jiggle with the Deso. And yeah, that's going to be 3 lives now on Jiggle Billing.
Yeah, and Jiggle has 4,000 gold, so we'll see what he decides to go for the next round. Maybe an AC, maybe even a Basher, and just go for the full DPS.
Yep.
I think either are a pretty good choice. I personally would like the AC just so he can have a little bit more survivability and help his team. And it also, of course, helps the Visage Birds hit a lot harder and everything as well.
Yep. MSS, his item choice, going to be coming up soon as well. He's got 4,600 gold tucked all the way away. Has the Orchid up already. Becomes a question of if he wants to go with something like a Sheepstick to go with the Orchid, or if he wants to begin transitioning into some kind of an off-carry status. And really, I feel like they're going to start needing that damage. I mean, like you said, they have great gank ability, but as these heroes on eHug continue to tank up, Scepter well on its way for the Visage, played by I Am a Sheep. Wraith King, as we saw, in great shape. Book 3 already up on the Invoker. We'll see what he wants to pick up next. But with Weaver having his Aquila as well as a Lincoln's up, these heroes are just getting tankier and tankier as the game goes. They're going to need another source of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bulba's just doing some dewarding right now with this gem that he just recently picked up. So good, very good for Liquid just to get some wards down. And eHug actually has no vision on the map, so they have to play a little bit careful. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to see... I think we're going to be seeing another pause coming out. I'm not sure why I said P. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
But MSS, I think the smart choice would really be going for this Hex, because Hex does give a great amount of damage on in-heroes, and he already does have this Lothar's Orchid and this Midas to make his DPS quite beefy. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Sheepstick, but yeah, it could definitely be something else just to make up for some damage that they're lacking.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on what they see out of the Wraith King as well. And
yeah, and it looks like Jigglebilly's going for... He's going for a refresher on this Wraith King.
Is he?
Oh, he is.
I didn't even... What is it, on the Courier?
Yeah, he's got the 2 pieces on the
That's
Courier right now.
awesome.
So that's going to be really fun.
Awesome. Love that pickup. And yeah, that was kind of what I was looking at and thinking about. We can see, I mean, he's sitting at 14 armor on that Wraith King. Not bad. Not bad.
Definitely not.
Not up in the 20s where you sometimes want him. And Assault Cuirass certainly would help out a lot with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that if he wanted to go with the AC, like you had said, that might necessitate a Desolator pickup on MSS just to try and cope with that. Especially given the build that the Lifestealer did end up going. Going with an attack speed build much more than just a pure out-and-out damage build, say like an early Deso coming out or anything like that.
Yeah.
But with him getting the refresher, I'm kind of on the same page with you. I think that's really going to put us in a situation where a Sheepstick is going to be necessary just to try and not just for him either. That's the thing. Having that extra Hex to try and deal with the Weaver. These 2 cores out of eHug are just going to feel impossible to keep down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Liquid actually have less kills than I thought they would. I mean, they do have all these amazing ganking heroes, especially with this Bat Rider and Furion and with the Infest, of course. But it's a really low-scoring game. It's only 9-4 at 28 minutes. So a little bit strange out of Liquid. I feel like they could definitely be ganking a lot more efficiently. And Pandago's getting pretty close to his mech, and Visage is actually getting absurdly close to his Ags as well. So I don't know. I'm kind of giving this to eHug, and also I really love this refresher pickup on this Wraith King. It's just it reminds me of like an Eternal Envy build, really.
Well, I mean, it makes so much sense. Again, what we were talking about is when you look at Liquid late game, they have a lot of control. They have a lot of there's some great spells that Fluff can steal on the Rubik. They have certainly great gank ability, great single target initiation. But whenever you have a Weaver who's going to have time lapse and is going to be tough to kill to begin with, he basically has 2 lives so long as he times his time lapse correctly.
Yeah.
Even if you catch him with the Disruptor, you have to burst him down. The Linkage helps with that. But where's their damage? I mean, just the way that the Lifestealer works. He rages in, does his damage, and wants to get out of the fight, wait for rage to come off cooldown, then go back in. Even if you're able to get a perfect lasso off, even if you're able to get a good glimpse off, if you're doing that to a Wraith King, just because of the natural downtime that a Lifestealer has in terms of his out-and-out usability in a lot of these fights, he's a natural hero who wants to go in, burst, then come back out, go back in, come back out, etc. That just negates that. It makes it impossible for you to rely on him as your only real physical damage dealer in the late game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the longer and longer that this game starts to go, Weaver really just benefits more and more because he does, even though he doesn't have the greatest farm, he's not having that great of a game, he is 0-3 on this Weaver, he does have this lifesteal on the Wraith, from the Wraith King, so it's huge. It potentially, if he gets a couple more items up, he's going to be hitting like a truck and be very, very hard to kill.
Yeah, and and that's kind of the situation he's in now. With the Desolator already being built on the Wraith King, we can see that, I mean, that's an item that usually you would see a Weaver build on his own.
Yeah, and I'm hoping everything is all right. It's taking a little bit of long time for MSS to come back. I hope the computer's something's not messing up.
But yeah, so I mean, with the Desolator already built, that's just going to free the Weaver up to go much more situational items, things that he can use, like you said, to capitalize on the fact that you have the Wraith King, the Wraith King's Vampiric Aura to keep you alive, to make you feel even more survivable. And I'm hearing a lot of noise outside.
Yeah, people are having a good time, it sounds like.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, and MSS actually has been doing something else that just a lot of players, I've pointed out in a couple games before that I've casted, that a lot of Furions do. They, instead of taking the jungle farm from their other heroes, he goes and farms the Ancients whenever possible. I think TC's done it a few times now, but MSS has been doing a great job of taking the enemy jungle as well whenever possible.
And still hoping, waiting on an update to see what the issue happens to be. We can see on the camera. Everyone's just kind of hanging around. Looks like something potentially needs replaced. Nothing being worked on very urgently, so that usually bodes fairly well. Usually means it's not some big issue or some pure, unsolvable issue. But again, this is our first best of 3 of the day. We're going to have our second coming up following conclusion of this series. That'll be Evil Geniuses taking on Cloud9 in our upper bracket finals. Winner of that will advance into the grand finals, and loser of this match ends up dropping out. Winner will be meeting the loser of EG versus Cloud9. And you can find all of the action right here all throughout today and tomorrow. And don't forget our Ability Draft All-Stars match coming up later today following our second best of 3 of the day. We had a lot of fun with that yesterday. It was a little trolling.
It was very trolling.
Little trolling. But and Arteezy fed.
That's what it's meant for.
Yeah,
that's what it's meant for. Come on. And then the Dire team was like completely winning the game. They were 20,000 gold ahead and just were like, GG out, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, it looks like it is going to be an equipment, some kind of a PC failure, I do believe. We're in the process of swapping that out. So stick with us. We'll be right back in just a moment for the conclusion of Liquid versus eHug Game 1 here at South by Southwest, the Monster Invitational. And we're back. The one PC that was giving us issues has been replaced. Everything seems squared away and managed to get MSS reconnected finally after a little bit of downtime due to some Steam issues. But we are ready to get this game. Game 1 of our first best of 3. Liquid taking on eHug. And really, we were talking during the break, and well, I guess it wasn't necessarily a scheduled break, but a break nonetheless. eHug's playing really well. I mean, they've really been able to dodge the aggression we both anticipated out of Liquid, and they're in a great position now to do exactly what they're doing, just getting together and saying, you know what, they think they have an advantage in terms of pure team fight. They know they do whenever you look at the fact that they got to kill the Wraith King 3 times, and they're ready to just start pushing deep towers.
Yeah, they're definitely just going to take this tier 2 and then back out, though, because their other lanes are really getting pressured very heavily. And Jigglypuff does finish up his refresher now, and he has it on him for sure. And Furion also actually went for a DPS build, like you said. He did go for the Maelstrom.
Yep. I think that makes a ton of sense. I mean, just, again, they need more consistent DPS, especially as good as Lifestealer can be. He is a bit up. Hang on, Jigglypuff going to be lassoed back. Nice stun coming out, and can they clean him up and get the Aegis off of him? Kinetic Field is there, does trap Pandago. TC taking so much damage, though, and down he goes. Jigglypuff on the warpath will get stunned again, is not going to mind all that much. As he drops, has the ultimate popped, and to the back of that, we actually saw Cakes giving a little bit of chase to MSS, but all they got was his ultimate, and it is a level 3 ultimate. He's level 17. That means he's back up and ready to go in 45 seconds with that.
Yeah, and TC hasn't bought out, so they're going to try to force a buyout on him and just pressure this tier 3 tower for sure, because they still do have the Aegis, and they still have his refresher up, and his ulti's going to be back up again, so they're going to have to kill him another 3 or 4 times.
Yep, and I just love this build out of Jiggle. I mean, you know, in terms of pure damage, he got all he needed. I mean, he doesn't even need to feel all that tanky, but still he has 2,200 HP just from pure stat gain and from the armlet being toggled on.
Oh, and Cake's getting initiated on.
Yep, here we go.
Nope.
Sunstrike, yep, not there. However, the kinetic field will buy him some time. eHug, though, in such an aggressive position right now, like you said. They do have the option to split push. We're actually going to see MSS head north and go after I'm a Sheep. Does it? Oh, there he goes. Catches him with the Sprout, and that DPS build paying off big time there. That's actually going to force eHug as a team to pull back, and they're going to be more and more reliant on that as this game keeps going. Again, Jiggle just where he is, so long as he has the Aegis in particular, but having the refresher, having his ultimate ready every 60 seconds, they're going to need MSS to be there every time. We see Bulba's actually made his way up there as well, has TC in tow, and will manage to lasso Ouroboros. That's another good kill for Liquid.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, too, just before, there had been no kills for about 8 minutes, and now we just got 3 or 4 just back to back to back.
Yep.
Great plays coming out of both teams right now. And I really want to see Jiggle go for some more item activatable items. Because with the refresher, he can refresh an Abyssal Blade and all these other items, which is really fun stuff to see.
TC with Wei2 here in mid, pressuring the tier 2. Looks like they may get this. They will get this without being contested. They're going to save their glyph just in case they decide to push through. But free tower for Liquid, and Liquid has continued to build on that gold lead. They're running just about 10,000 gold ahead now once it updates with that tower gold. But still, you know, especially, it's just going to be so tough for Liquid to make sure that they execute on this. We saw just how much damage output Jigglebilly has, but more importantly, Cakes is getting up there as well. He's added a Demon Edge to his inventory now on his way to pure right click. And yeah, I mean, it's something you mentioned early on, but I think is going to bear re-mentioning over and over again. In terms of their survivability with the Max Vampiric Aura, it's going to be so hard. Honestly, even Furion with the Mjolnir build, he's going to need a right-click 100% damage item added into that before they really have a chance to have that sustained DPS they need so desperately against eHug.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liquid does have some aggressive wards coming out, so they do see Jigglebilly farming in this aggressive position. And MSS is doing a fantastic job of keeping all these lanes completely pushed in at all times. And we see Visage finish up his Ags, and Disruptor also finishing up his Ags about at the same time. And we see a Infest on the Batrider bottom. They're looking to try to pick off Ouroboros, but Ouroboros just throws his minions and just is split pushing the lanes as best as possible.
Yep. And we can see he's actually moving through the Dire Side Secret Shop now. Is moving very quickly with that haste room. We'll keep an eye on him. He's going to look for a target. He's going to have a few here in mid. Cakes is going to have his Shikuchi wear off right now. Familiars are there. Ouroboros is there. Bulba will go ahead and decide to back off. Didn't have the supporting cast he would have wanted there, knowing that all of eHug was there, decided to just cut his losses.
Yeah, and they're just they really don't want a team fight. Liquid just really wants to just keep split pushing, try to find these little pickoffs with the Batrider and the Infest ganks, and having Furion just get full slotted, and he's getting dangerously close. He has another 5k in his inventory after picking up his Mjolnir. So I wonder if we'll be seeing that Hex picked up that I was saying before. But Ouroboros is actually really falling off. He still only has this Book 3 and this Force Staff. He hasn't picked up anything else, and he doesn't have that much gold or any levels really to boot as well.
His item development really has been quite a bit slow. Taking a look at the overall net worth, we can see 3 of the top 4 are on the side of Liquid. Weaver is a little bit low. He's actually behind Bulba in terms of pure overall net worth. And at this point, it is MSS that is on top. So his influence, I mean, you're talking 5,200 gold he's got tucked away. I really want to see what item he wants to go for. What are they going to value more here? Is it going to be control, or is it going to be just the ability to right-click eHug down the stretch?
I think he's just going to make his decision based off how the team fights go. So he can save a lot of mana.
Yep.
Or a lot of money, so.
TC spotted by Cakes, and not going to pursue him out. We see the Lincolns making him a very, very difficult target. But
Yeah, absolutely, and he's getting pretty close to his MKB as well.
Oh, yeah. Up at top, Liquid is actually, I feel like Liquid's outmaneuvering eHug now as we get deeper into this game. 35 minutes in, their movement has been good, has been enough to keep eHug at bay, even though they are so very deadly with this combination. The Aegis did expire on our Wraith King. We're going to see Roche back up not too long from now, and
another pause.
Unfortunately, it looks like some other issue plaguing things a bit. Poor MSS.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It looks like Lifesteal is starting to build into more of a defensive build. He's picking up a plate mail on him pretty soon, and yeah, oh, okay, good. Not a big problem. It's coming back right into the game.
Yep. Might even been an accident, something like that, but all right, so we're getting closer and closer to 40 minutes is usually where I mark the late game. That's where the late game really begins to get into full swing. And like you said, you start to see heroes get 6 slotted. In fact, speaking of, 4,700 gold tucked away for Jigglebilly right now, so he's in great shape there. Which team do you think is really going to be the most poised, given the state of things right now? And it is going to be a Skullbasher pickup coming out on the Wraith King.
Awesome. I hope he does do some Refresher Abyssal Blades when he can. It's going to be really interesting to see that. I'm not really too sure, actually. I mean, the thing is that Lifestealer is starting to fall a little bit behind in the net worth, but at the same time, Cakes and the Invoker are not really benefiting too much. They don't really have too much gold under the belt. They don't really have that many items, and they're not progressing that well. And Furion is becoming a straight-up carry at this point. He has 6.6k gold under his belt with this Mjolnir, Orchid, Midas, and Lothar. So he's going to start hitting like an absolute truck, even though he already is. So
there's going to be a glimpse. Oh, he got him up to the high ground with the Static Storm in the kinetic field, but nothing to follow it up. Was curious if they were going to try to make anything happen there, but Wei-2 with a Q play, not the most effective. Now we're going to see movement down towards bottom. Pandago shows his face as MSS and Fluff were trying to get something done down there. They did get a little bit of free damage done to the Tier 3, but as of right now, eHug is holding their borders together.
Yeah, and they're just getting a little bit out-farmed, though, because they're just sitting in their base a lot of the time because the lanes are just constantly being pushed in. So right now, I have to give this to Liquid, because Liquid just outmaneuvering them for the most part, getting wards up and really just keeping eHug in their base and not able to farm any jungle or any ancients. And we do see a smoke coming out of eHug right now, and they're going to try to go for a pick right now.
Oh, MSS. Oh, if they had continued south, they could have caught MSS. Instead, they're going to double back up north, try to catch Bulba and Wei-2 as they retreat after split pushing. It's going to be Pandago up front along with Rhea Boris. And Rhea's going to spot Wei-2.
Oh, yep.
So Wei-2 going to drop for sure. And does get off the kinetic field and does manage to trap Ryu. Just no help coming in, so Bulba just retreating himself. That's not, you know, it's a decent pick, but not the best pick they could have had.
Yeah, and we do see a Blink Dagger coming out of Ryu, so great pickup there. I think he needed something just to get an item out, because his farm really slowed down in this game.
Speaking of slow farm, there's a mechanism coming out, you know, your standard 36-minute mech finished on Pandago as we speak. Roshan is back up now, and it should be known by both teams. Definitely known by eHug at the very least. Pretty sure Liquid knows that Roche is up. But 12-6, a really quiet game across the board. You're talking 18 kills in 37 minutes, give or take. But yeah, well, this is what eHug really needs to do, though. They need to push the lanes back out, get a little bit more map control. So long as they're tucked under their Tier 3, they will eventually just fall under the weight of the massive amounts of gold that Liquid's going to generate. We see Jiggles actually moving into the Roche pit all by himself. Liquid is up to the top. We're going to see a lasso, though, that's going to catch out Rhea Boris. They do manage to kill him. MSS came in, but Jiggle has Roche down to half, but Bulba's going to spot him. Bulba knows it's happening. They need to get out of there right now. Jiggle's just going to go for it, man, and will manage to bring it down. It was brought down, and the Aegis picked up by Wraith King. TC, though, going to absolute work. Cakes in trouble, able to time-lapse to get himself back to safety, but beautiful Static Storm and Kinetic Field. However, the Flame Break knocks him out, and Jiggle benefiting from that. He does end up having his ultimate pop. Pandago has to stay away from the fight solo. Jiggle going one-on-one with TC and being healed up by Pandago as much as he can. TC, though, able to get ahead and pop that Aegis. TC now going to work on Cakes. Cakes will be glimpsed back, but it's just a body. Glimpsed back into that kinetic field. Up to the top, TC. Very low health, but more than enough. And able to make it away. Big fight, and they do manage to track down one more for a full four-man wipe.
MSS is just split pushing because he did have to buy out, but you know what? He doesn't want to TP back into that team fight. It's just a Wraith King, so he's just going to take a free Rax in the meantime, and that was a great fight by Liquid. They kind of just kited the Wraith King around, and he can't really get that much damage done because they're just lifting him and kinetic fielding him and all this. So, and now, they're really going to go on him again, and they might even be able to get him.
He did manage to get the refresher off, so he's going to be coming back up off of that ultimate. But forced to use the refresher, now on cooldown for quite some time. Almost a 3-minute cooldown. They're going to glimpse him back, though. They don't have the kinetic field. Fluff, maybe one more lift. Does not have the mana for it. It was actually on cooldown.
Yeah, and MSS still just going to town on buildings. He knows he does not need to show up to these fights. He just needs to take out the Rags. And great play by Fim. They're going to get 2 Rags. And now they're just going to drag Jiggle away. They don't really need to fight him and kill him. They just need to waste time while MSS pushes. And actually, they're going to kill him anyway, so.
So a great game that was very quiet until the end. Finally, we start to see the kills pile up, and unfortunately for eHug, not going in their favor. As Liquid breaks the game wide open, manages to bring down 2 sets of racks. And, you know, we talked about this yesterday in terms of Furion and his power. Hold on, Fluff was being pursued by Cakes. Cakes caught out in the kinetic field, but...
Yeah, and MSS is just finishing up the racks. They're going to get Megas at this rate, and there's really nothing you can do versus Megas. It's got to be GG called out, I'd have to give the MVP to MSS. He did such a great job of just keeping these lanes constantly pushed in at all times and keeping eHug in their base for the last couple minutes, and it really just showed how much farm they ended up losing. All the guys on Liquid ended up having a good amount more farm. You could see that the Invoker just ended up having not really that big of an impact in the game. Neither did the Weaver, even though they had a few items under their belt. They couldn't get these other bigger items that they really needed.
Absolutely. And, the game, that felt like a very, very long game, mostly because the action was very condensed at times. We saw most of those kills piled up in a couple of very heavy sequences. But as you look at the way things finished up, obviously MSS on the Nature's Prophet, despite having the issues he did, was probably the biggest influence on the entire board. The Wraith King, 1-2-1, he looked like he was going to be an absolute monster, but like you said, it was just the way that Liquid was able to do two things. One, to kite him around in those late game fights, but two, they contained him so much better in the second half of that game than they did in the first. In the first, he was just getting farm, he was getting big, he got up a refresher, he had a couple of Aegises, so on and so forth. But once they were able to really shove eHug back under their own tier 3s, that's when MSS on the Prophet really came into his own. We started to see the map control that a late game Prophet gives you really just bear its pressure on eHug, and they were not able to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like Real Boris is still underperforming a little bit. He's usually known as a very strong mid laner, and his presence is usually quite strong. And these games are really just not showing the power of him as a player.
And worth mentioning, Cakes struggled quite a bit as well.
Yeah,
Finished
absolutely.
0-4-1, only 200 last hits to his name. His GPM was 370. He and Riaboris right on top of each other. To put that in perspective, the in-game GPM for Fluff alone was 323.
Yeah,
so
Fluff had a fantastic game, though, absolutely.
So, Team Liquid takes game one, and eHug, the upstarts, the guys coming in, the underdogs, well, they're one game away from being eliminated and knocked out of the tournament. We'll see if they can give us a game 3, or if Team Liquid is going to be able to seal the deal and advance through this lower bracket. Once again, I'm your host, Aaron AC Chambers, Fogged, of course, on my other side. You're tuned in to the Monster Energy Invitational live from the floor of South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas. We'll be right back with game 2 of our first best of 3 coming up next.